Hello and welcome to Newsroom. We're coming to you live from Islamabad, and I'm your host Sharmeen Ali. Prime Minister Imran Khan has advocated a global relief package for developing countries. This is due to the fact that the developing countries are particularly facing poverty as well as trying to fight the virus. On a telephone conversation with Bill Gates, he said to Bill Gates that Pakistan is facing the virus on two different fronts. One of them is fighting the disease and healthcare, and on the other hand, Pakistan is also trying to fight hunger, and due to that, his government has launched the $8 billion package, which addresses the poverty and hunger in the country, and it addresses the laborers and the marginalized group of people who are losing jobs at this time, daily wage workers, etc., and people who are not able to afford the consequences of the lockdown. And he also stressed to developing countries what the urgency of the situation is at the moment, that urgent relief is needed. So we'll be talking about that on our program. Also, the Hindutva situation in India is getting worse day by day. Most recently, we've seen that a senior BJP lawmaker, Suresh Tiwari, he warned people in his region not to buy from Muslim vendors vegetables and fruits, etc. Now, as a result, with these kind of statements and the fear that is prevalent right now amongst the Hindu community that maybe Muslims are responsible for spreading this virus due to a Tablighi Jamaat religious gathering in India, which was responsible for a few dozen cases. Now the entire Muslim community is being targeted, and these vendors who are very, very poor are losing their livelihoods in India, and other Muslims are being targeted, and there are several accounts of this all over the media and social media, and it's very disturbing to see indeed. And this is just a day after US SURF has listed India as a country of particular interest, where religious persecution is concerned and the rights of religious minorities are concerned. Also, an area of concern is for Pakistan, where we're seeing repeated ceasefire violations across the line of control from India into Azad Kashmir, the region which is with Pakistan and it's independent. And these ceasefire violations, the line of control firing from the Indian side, always targets innocent civilians, and amongst them there have been small children, women who have been hurt and killed. Very, very innocent people who have nothing to do with any sort of conflict. They're constantly being targeted by the Indian military. And the Chief of Army Staff has said about this that these ceasefire violations will always be met with a befitting response. And General Bajwa made several statements about this situation, and we'll be talking about that as well. And also, on a very positive note, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the renowned director of the National Center for Allergy and Infectious Disease in the US, has announced that there is a ray of hope where there is a drug, remdesivir, that is proving in early studies that it's effective in treating coronavirus patients. We'll be talking about this as well in our program. So to begin with, in our first segment, we're going to talk about Prime Minister Imran Khan's advocating global debt relief for developing countries, how important that is. We have with us online for that Shakil Rame, who's an economist. Thank you, Shakil, for joining us.
My pleasure.
Now this conversation that Prime Minister Imran Khan had with Bill Gates, the founder of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, its co-founder, he said that Pakistan is having to fight the virus. Now we're seeing that the medical infrastructure here in Pakistan needed a lot of upheaval and addressing, getting gowns, PPE equipment, masks, etc., testing kits has been a challenge for a country like Pakistan. And not only do we have to face this challenge, we also have to face the challenge of the lockdown and what the common man faces in Pakistan due to that. Shakil.
Look, Sharmeen, so Pakistan is facing a problem like that, which I always say, so we have to choose between the devil and the deep sea. So on one side, we have to take care of the COVID-19, and on the other side, we have to take care of the lives of the people, their food security, and their livelihoods. So Pakistan had to make very difficult choices. If somebody say, so economics is not important, this is not the economics. Pakistan is trying to maintain the livelihood of the people. So they are trying to sustain their life. Pakistan is not running after this economic to open economic activities. Pakistan is running after just to take care of the fundamental needs of the people. Pakistan have to keep our supply chain in the functional form, because our supply chain, especially in the food sector, that is the more dependent on the human. Our only 20% supply chain is dependent on the mechanized sources, but the remaining of the 80% is dependent on the human. So this is a huge challenge for the government, because if the supply chain will become dysfunctional, that means the food security will be a big problem. If government don't take the measures, with the required measures to contain the COVID, then it can create the problem of the widespread of COVID-19. So government is trying to manage two problems at one time, and they are trying to go for the smart lockdown, which we sometimes we use the name the smart lockdown, sometimes other times. So government have to make a very difficult choice. If we talk about on other side of the health facilities, it is an open secret. It's not that this is the first time. It's our, you can, if you have ever look at the budget allocations for the health sector, you can find the answer. For the decades we are ignoring our health sector. We were dependent on the private sector, and the private sector was becoming a big way, and the private sector has a, you can say, quite a huge market. But we have to keep in mind, private sector works on the method of the profit. They don't care for the anything else. They care about profit, because for them it's a business. It's not there for the charity. And we should not mix the Shaukat Khanam or the Indus or the other charity hospitals like the Khidmat Foundation hospitals or some other hospitals. We should not mix these hospitals with the private one, because these are the charity or the foundation hospitals. So our spending on the health remained very low, and the ultimate results we are facing today. And on top of that, at this point of time, our economy is going through a very worse economic crisis. We were struggling to revive our economy. We were struggling to find a ways to pay back the debt of the different partners. Suddenly we were struck with this hit with this the COVID-19. So for Pakistan, the situation is very difficult, and the choices we are making, you can say it's another choices. We are flowing with the time, because we have the very limited choices. If people are sitting at the home, how much resources we have to feed them? How much resources we have to take care of the basic needs and necessities? That is a big question. One side, and second, on the other side is from where will get the help for this health emergency. If we're talking about the IMF or the World Bank or the IDB, these are the loans. These are not assistance. We have to be very specific on that. These are loans which we have to pay back in the long run. So we are looking towards the cooperation and assistance like the Bill Gates Foundation or some of our Chinese friend or some other friends from where we can get some assistance, not the loans.
Right, and Shakil, now Pakistan's a multifaceted society. As we know, we're talking about the poverty, we're talking about trying to keep the healthcare situation under control, yet the culture is also that of a lot of social gatherings and meeting up, and then you also have the religious gatherings now during Ramadan, and how the government has also decided that they're going to allow the religious gatherings, but with a certain kind of policy about that and how that is to be done. It will be done in a certain way. So it's not, in a sense that it's not exactly clashing. It's been done in a systematic way in order to sort of minimize the exposure to people getting this virus from each other.
Look, Shami, so we have to change certain ways of life. If we talk about with the religious community, they are aware of the problems. If we talk with them with the sense and with the reference of the history of the Islamic history, or in the light of the hadith and other stuff, because hadith give us the guidance when there is some outbreak or something like that, so avoid to go there with those places, avoid to go and to leave those places. So we have to be careful. So our demands from the societies are like that. So when there was a COVID-19 in Wuhan, so everybody in our media was crying, bring back the students, bring back the students. And that time nobody realized so much dangerous, how much dangerous it is. But now people feel like that it was a wise decision not to bring them back. So we have to take a very wise strategy, and I think the government is trying to take it, but the choices are very limited. There are some fanatics in the society who say that, oh, what will happen, what will not happen. Look, being a Muslim, it's our belief. So life and death belongs to Allah. But it doesn't mean you go onto the railway track and stand in front of the rail and say that, oh, rail cannot struck me, it's only God has tell us. So there are certain ways to save your life. It is suicidal act to go and stand in front of the rail. So precautions mean something else, and if we talk about life and death belongs to Allah, that's something else. That is our belief, and we must stick to that. But our belief also tells that take care of ourselves.
Right. Also now, the Prime Minister has just said that he spoke to the leaders in Iran and how slowly the lockdown there is easing. And the only thing is that they're not allowing large gatherings. And also in Pakistan, they will not be allowing large gatherings for some time now. I mean, that is also something that affects different industries. I mean, a lot of different industries are affected by that. Yet that is something that needs to be done.
Look, gathering is a big problem. We have to avoid it. In case of, we have to control it. Even for the simple disease, we have to avoid the gathering. And this is a contagious disease. We have to take extra measures. But to ease down, that should be in a systematic way. There are number. Look at that. If we look at that, the GDP structure of Pakistan, there are, you will find to a service sector is the most dominant sector. And agriculture sector is also one of the major contributors. In the services sector, we have to talk about the barber shop. We have to talk about the conductors, drivers. We have to talk about the sanitary workers. We have to talk a number of other types of the daily wages. So we have to talk about, and there's a less debate on that, because on these, if we talk about driver or the conductors or the barbers, they depend on their daily wages. They are also daily wages. They don't have so much resources to save. We should not take only the service sector in the terms of the financial market or the telecom sector market. They are the joints, they can afford it, but we have to talk about the daily wages in the social sector. One side, and second thing, in agriculture supply chain, coming back again. Now we are going for a harvest. That would be a very critical time, because harvesting they can done at the family level, but they have to bring the product in the market, intermediate market. That intermediate market is the most dangerous point. If government is become relaxed on that market in the central point, it will be the harbor of the COVID-19. It will be provided and backward and the forward linkages for the spread of the COVID, because at the intermediate market the buyer seller are there and the buyer are there, and the seller go back to their villages or the parts, and the buyers come back to the market, retail markets in the city. So they can be the harbor of that. So government is working on that, and government is trying to facilitate how they can manage those markets, because harvesting at the family level, at the family farm level, that would not be the problem. The real problem is the intermediate point. On that, the SDPI, from SDPI, Dr. Salari is our executive that is working very closely with the government to work on the food security and agriculture without compromising on functioning of a supply chain in the food. So again, I come back. The choices are very limited. Government is trying. Now we need unanimity in society, in the different actors of the society. Look, everybody is saying the right thing. If somebody say, no, we should not allow this and we should be confined within the home to contain it, he is right. But he is right partially. If somebody say, no, I will go, market should be open and it is death and life only belongs to Allah, he is right. Life and death belongs to Allah. But Allah also tells us to be very careful about the life. So in between, we have to find out some way where we call the smart lockdown. So we are working on that. So let's see. So what would be the result? And media especially have to play a role. They have to play a role.
Right, exactly. For spreading information and the right kind of information, definitely media has a critical role. Now, as far as the impact on the low-income groups is concerned, the ESAS program, it covers at 8.5 billion rupees for 6.6 million families have gotten 12,000 rupees, and that's supposed to be for a total of, now going forward, it's going to cover 12 million families for a total of 144 billion rupees. So for the first time, many daily wage workers and low-income workers have mentioned that they're actually getting cash in their hands, and that is a big deal. And the Minister for Economic Affairs also said how they will be helping small businesses, the very small businesses with their electricity bills. So all of these things gradually, slowly should be easing the troubles of these small businesses and workers.
Look, these things will be easing. That is a very good step for the government, and the government is trying to provide some stuff to the daily wages. Everything is trying to do, but we have to see how long government can provide it. Would it be the one-time activity, or it would be continuous activity? And if it would be a continuous activity, so from where government will get the resources? That was a big question. If it is one-time activity, that means then the government has to open the business. So again, I'm emphasizing on one word: the choices are very difficult, and that is a place where we have to look for the cooperation with our friends. Like maybe we have to look towards the China. In China case, we can also work on some innovative ways. Like we can ask them, okay, let's work on SAZs during that period. Our daily wages are being they have lost a job, they don't have the work to do, they nothing have to do it, and we can talk to them. Let's build our SAZs. If we are able to build the SAZs, that's mean we will be able to provide the jobs to people. One thing, and second thing, we will be able to bring the investment in the industrial sector, because the industrialists will come to build the SAZs and the Pakistan special economic zones in the Pakistan. If they invest, they bring the money, they provide the money, and they're providing the job. That's mean in that later time we are creating some job. And Chinese have the good experience to start the work and control the cover, so they can also follow the guidelines on that. Second point
Right.
can be, we can talk to our friends in the Middle East, although they are in problem already, but we can also talk to them. Look, the people who are engaged in jobs there, at least keep them on the job, so there would be no difference on our remittances, so families can sustain some pressure. Third thing we can do, we can work on the agriculture revival. We can
Right.
engage unskilled labor to the agriculture, and we can work on that. We can bring the extra land under the cultivation. So there are a number of things which can do, but these are long-term measures.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us online, Shakil Rame, who's a senior economist. And now moving on to the plight of the Muslim minority in India, which seems to be getting more and more grim by the minute. Now we've seen now most recently the new development is that a lawmaker from the BJP, a senior lawmaker, Suresh Tiwari from Uttar Pradesh, he has asked people of his constituency not to buy products from Muslim vendors in order to protect themselves. And when he was asked about this, he went ahead to say that this was because he had heard that he had seen a video of people accusing and reports that Muslims were purposefully contaminating the vegetables with the coronavirus. Amongst this, we've also seen there's a video circulating around of people accusing a fruit vendor in a neighborhood in India, telling him, asking him, insisting him that he admit that he is a Muslim. And when he didn't admit he's a Muslim, they went on to repeatedly ask him about his origin, if he's a Muslim or not. And finally, when he admitted that he was a Muslim, that fruit vendor was chased out of that neighborhood and told never to come back, and told him he was told not to come and sell his goods, his fruits and vegetables anywhere near them again. So we're seeing this level of hostility increasing day by day in India against Muslims, and this is just a day after. The U.S. Center for International Religious Freedoms released its report for 2020, naming India as a country of particular interest. We have online with us now Dr. Waqar Ali Kausar, who's international affairs expert. Waqar Ali Kausar, who's an international affairs expert. Thank you, sir, for joining us online.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
This most recent statement by this BJP lawmaker Suresh Tiwari, who's telling his constituents to deliberately discriminate against Muslim vendors. We saw also a response from the BJP about this, saying that the BJP does not, from the BJP spokesperson, that they don't endorse such statements. Sir, what does this say about what is happening right now in India? If the BJP is refuting and saying that we don't endorse these kind of statements, yet we're seeing it every day.
I guess for the first time we have seen that disease like corona, when you say that was labeled and Muslim were put like called this entire thing as corona jihad, because the BJP had the background history of creating racist and anti-religion or anti-Muslim sentiment. So I guess the sentiment was there, but when this entire pandemic happened, what happened was that these specifically seminaries and some other Muslim institutions were blamed for spreading this. I guess this has multiplied the overall situation, and this has intensified the situation. I must say one thing. I guess for the first time we have seen the response from the international community, including the from the Middle East people, the civil society, and that people have responded very strongly. Simultaneously, we also seen that there is some sort of response from the international community, particularly on the report that has been published on the minorities by the American Commission. I guess we all have to understand this thing that this has really serious repercussions for the Muslims of India and minorities in particularly, and no center voice can tolerate, and in fact can think of creating this mess out of this, doing politics out of this disease or this pandemic situation as well. So this is not welcoming. I guess no center voice can defend that, and even for BJP, it becomes very difficult to defend this entire situation.
Right, exactly. And the BJP has also issued a show cause notice to this lawmaker. However, we are also seeing on a repeated basis that people in India who are Muslims are being accused of corona jihad. We've heard of suicides taking place because of the alienation and marginalization of the Muslim community there. People are losing their livelihoods because there are temples which are making announcements that that people shouldn't go and buy their milk from Muslim vendors and things like that. So it's like even though the BJP has issued a show cause notice and their spokesperson has said that this is not along their lines, but still this continues to happen and their leaders still continue to have this anti-Muslim rhetoric on a regular basis.
See, because there's a great, I mean, there's a happenings. There are certain issues and incidents that have happened in that society, particularly when BJP came into the power. So this is their sustained political agenda that they have been doing. That they have created atmosphere of fear and hate, actually, particularly to further argument their own politics. Now, what happened exactly right now is it's a very serious crisis that you are just creating and ostracizing an entire community, which is a very big population based on their religion. So you have seen this entire thing from their assembly to the society, to the grassroots level. It traveled from there, and the impact is very much seen now at the ground when the communities living together from centuries now are at daggers drawn. It's very difficult and disastrous situation. Second, the entire this impact has gone to you can see the deep down within the Indian society, Indian civil society, and the other voices as well. I guess within this pandemic situation, when the world is trying to fight, bring the communities together to fight against this COVID-19 pandemic, it is something very alarming for the India as a country, I guess I must say, where a large section of population is isolated, and then you try to isolate them, orchestrate them, and tell them that this particular disease has come due to you. I guess this is very sad, one, and the international community must take notice of such these actions. I mean, we're also witnessing the same sort of violations on LOC, in particular in Kashmir, which is very, again, I guess it's a very sad thing when the world is trying to combat the COVID-19. We have seen the repeated LOC violations by India. We have seen the repeated LOC violations, and the people have been dying. And I guess the entire situation is not very good. You must see when the WHO and other institutions are issuing the SOPs and all these safety precautions and measures for the people, but people living on the LOC, they are facing another pandemic. With COVID, they are also facing the LOC firing, which is very disastrous and dangerous for them. So this is, again, I mean, this is very serious. When the United Nations and appealed, Secretary General appealed to cease the hostilities, lower the level of, I mean, violence, but people on the Kashmir side, they're witnessing a new wave of violence, which is very sad.
Right. Also, earlier, the Tablighi Jamaat that was blamed in India for spreading dozens of cases, maybe some cases did originate from there. They had to, due to the lockdown, they had to accommodate certain members of theirs, so they had a place to stay. So they had some cases amongst them. They were blamed for a lot of the spread of the disease, which also caused a lot of this anti-Muslim sentiment. Yet at the same time, we're seeing big religious gatherings being done by Yogi Adityanath, the UP Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister. There was just recently a big, large religious gathering just a couple of days back. However, the Hindu community is not being targeted for spreading the virus.
See, that's a tragedy, I must say. That the entire fabric of Indian society has changed now. When you see the polarization, that what happened within India is now BJP is actually politics revolves around particularly two things. One is to create fear, and other fear again. I mean, one is the anti-Pakistan rhetoric that they have been carrying, but other is to create fear from the other minorities that they will grow in more population and they will take over. So the entire politics revolve around these two things. Now you have to further carry your argument, your own politics, when you have the politics on the fear and when you have the politics on the hate. The fundamental problem is they have, categorized and labeled one particular sect or one particular minority community for the COVID thing. What happened? This has multiplied within the society. The effect. What happened? That common Muslims, those who don't belong to even Tablighi Jamaat, they became the victim and the sufferers. That's why the international communities and the people have responded very sharply and strongly that this disease, this pandemic, do not differentiate between caste, religion, creeds as well. On the other side, you see that there are, as you mentioned, there are a lot larger congregations and other things happening. I guess this is right time for the Indian Muslims to take a very strong and I must say, step
Right.
to express themselves. One, to second is to document their own issues and aspirations and let the world listen to this. I mean, you cannot discriminate and differentiate people at the time of such pandemic and natural calamity happen. And I've been listening a lot about even medical support and all these things. I mean, once you discriminate, this discrimination never stops to the political level. It goes towards the economic level. It goes towards the social level. It goes to the other level as well. So that's what we are seeing, that completely a large community is marginalized, and now this entire discrimination has traveled to their different aspect of their life. Even economically, socially, politically, they are very much vulnerable now.
Right, exactly. Basically, we've seen that in the past also the Muslims in India were marginalized. They tended to live in different localities, and businesses served them, those localities. Then they were run by Muslims. They were separate, and they were sort of less, they were weaker. They had less of important positions in the country, etc. It was an underlying issue, would you say?
See, it's so in society, Indian society post 47. I mean, partition is a great reality. We have seen that the subcontinent has been divided on the basis of religion. That's there, and over the period of time, we have also seen that there have been crises. But I guess post 47, India is sort of a leadership that understood these dynamics and tried to bring people under the umbrella of the secularism, try to give space. But of course, the issues were very much there. And what we have seen, that we have been listening a lot about Indian larger, greater democracy and all these things. But we, as I mean, I must say, from the Kashmir side, we had an experience that when it comes to democracy and rights, there is not greater ideals of Indian democracy. Those can be cherished. But for the people, for the larger world, there was a larger democracy, so-called. People have been praising and a lot. But just you
Right.
just imagine one single one and a half time government of Narendra Modi, BJP right-wing government exposed each and everything. It meaning by society has a deeper fractures. Society could
Right.
not
So,
heal
Dr.
itself.
Dr. Vikas, now to conclude this topic, I just wanted to ask you that we've seen now Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, he's appealed to the OIC to take a stand against this. Like you were saying earlier, Middle Eastern countries have started to speak up about this discrimination against Muslims, and there's a large Indian population working in those Middle Eastern countries, and they said this will not be tolerated. Also, at the same time, in the past, we've seen other Muslim countries, Turkey, Malaysia standing up for the rights of Muslims in India as well. And also now US SURF has said that if one of the policy recommendations against what's happening in India against religious minorities, they said that there could be sanctions against those individuals and organizations to the extent that they could have their assets seized or they could be denied visas. So do you think this will have a good, strong impact and more will come out of this?
I guess the letter written by Foreign Minister, I mean, it's the larger thing that it indicates that one thing, that the minorities are in danger, particularly the Muslim community. So world should take the notice. I mean, if it's a global world, sure, a lot of things together. These values of human rights should be upheld by all. So a community based on the religion should not be persecuted or targeted. We had enough in Kashmir. We have seen that, and we are yet witnessing in Kashmir. So world couldn't respond and didn't respond, I must say, to that level. But for this at least, if they are speaking up, and Pakistan has written a letter, communicated and conveyed its own concerns, which is very much right. But I guess fundamentalize on the Muslims of the India that they should stand for their own rights. Pakistan should take a stand as a stand for the humanity, stand for the fundamental political and human rights of the people, which should be safeguarded anywhere within in any country. Second, I
Right.
must say
Thank
the
you.
world community. Just to say one thing, world community also take a strong notice of the plight of the Kashmiri people as well, those who are suffering. And this is the time
Absolutely.
that they should respond and react to the miseries of the Kashmiri people, and particularly the violence which is happening in LOC, that should be taken into consideration as well.
Right, absolutely. And thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Vikas Ali Kausar. And now moving on to finally good news, some positive developments that have come out in the world about the coronavirus. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, has said that there's a drug that can block this virus, and by blocking an enzyme that this virus uses. And he said that a trial that began in February has now shown some very positive results for the drug remdesivir. And he said that this drug has significant positive effects on diminishing the time to recover from the virus from 11 days compared to 15 days. He said that's a 31% improvement, and it is a significant improvement. And he said that this drug can actually block this virus, and that mortality rates in this particular trial also went down to 8% versus 11% in the people who were given remdesivir. So very positive news and very hopeful news indeed. We are yet to see when this drug, if at all, comes out in the market. Hopefully a lot of positive developments coming out in research to fight the coronavirus. So let's hope that we see this virus slow down sometime soon in the world and things return back to normal. That's all for our program today. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.